Welcome to the Passive House podcast, brought to you by Passive House Accelerator, a catalyst for zero carbon building. For news, inspiration, and connections from all flavours of Passive House, check out passivehouseaccelerator.com. Sign up to receive regular updates about events, get your questions answered, and contribute to the community dialogue. There's loads of free information for experienced professionals and people just starting out on their Passive House journey. We hope to see you at one of our weekly Passive House Accelerator live webinars. In the meantime, here's this week's Passive House podcast.
G'day and welcome back to the Passive House podcast. I'm Matthew Cutler-Welsh, coming to you from Auckland, New Zealand.
And I'm Zach Semke, coming to you from Seattle, Washington.
And we've got a special episode right now, Zach, with our friends from Retrotec.
That's right. We have Sam Meyers who is a building scientist with Retrotec and also a product developer and trainer there. Retrotec is famous in the Passive House community for its blower doors. They have all sorts of diagnostic equipment that we touch on in this interview. So I hope that folks enjoy it.
Yeah, well, let's get into it, and we'll check in afterwards with some highlights, shall we?
Sounds good. Well, I have Sam Meyers here, who is the internal building scientist at Retrotec. Sam, it's great to have you on the Passive House podcast.
Zach, thanks to agree here, man. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, totally. I'm really excited about this. So I thought maybe we could start by getting to know you a little bit. And if you could share a little bit about your pathway to Retrotec, what got you there and what you're doing there now that you're there.
Sure. Yeah. So I kind of fell into the building science field in kind of a roundabout way. Back in 2011, I finished my bachelor's degree at UNC Wilmington and lived on the North Carolina Outer Banks for a couple of years working in vacation real estate. So weekly vacation rentals. We had a lot of people driving down from all other parts of the country. They've been saving up and waiting for this family vacation all week. And so I would kind of help coordinate maintenance and get people checked in and keep things running smoothly. And man, it wore me out working every weekend. And so I was like, okay, well, I want to do something else, and I'll probably go back to school, and I want to do something that's meaningful, whether it's to the environment or the social aspect. So East Carolina University had a Master's of Science degree in sustainability, and you could pick from 3 different concentrations, and one of them was the built environment. And that piqued my interest. And well, I went to meet with them, and they said, well, it's funny that you came from vacation real estate in the Outer Banks because we just got a grant from the EPA to study energy consumption of vacation rental homes on the Outer Banks.
Whoa.
So yeah,
that's crazy.
I mean, right place at the right time. So
yeah.
I worked on that project for 2 years. It actually ended up being what I wrote my thesis on. So we worked with a couple of companies out there and collected data on 30 different houses. I had a few engineering students, undergrads working under me, kind of helping get all this data collected with a few trips out there. And, upon completing my degree, Advanced Energy, who is a pretty well-known building science consulting firm, it's where John Tooley was for a long time, and I got to work with him for a little bit, but they had an internship for 11 months. And I knew that if I wanted to get that hands-on experience, boots on the ground, that was the place to do it. And so upon completing that, they had a job opening. So I was there for several years working as a building scientist, training builders, training HVAC contractors, insulators on how to meet standards that we wrote for the state for affordable housing programs. And after a while, Retrotec had a position open to do a lot of the same stuff with some product development, training customers, presenting at conferences, things like that. So I've been here for 5 years now, and
awesome.
Really enjoyed it. Yeah.
Yeah, fantastic. And so what is it that you do at Retrotec now as internal building scientist?
Yeah, so I do a lot of our training. I'm always going to training events, conferences for various different parts of the industry, for whether if it's focusing on HVAC, home builders, passive house, ResNet, HERS raters, doing a lot with BPI and BPA as well to provide educational content for them. So I'm usually the guy that's going to be showing up and teaching some of those courses, presenting some of that content, and also running our trade show booths and answering questions of people that walk by, or if we have an exhibit or things like that. But I've been working on some product design as well. There's a couple of products that we have available that are designed by me. One of them is the flow box that we use to measure ventilation airflow that works with our DM32 and DM32X manometers, and a probe. It's a mini probe that you can use to investigate wall assemblies, floors, ceiling assemblies as well, without having to drill a hole. That'll work with our gauges as well. That's something that we're about to release. So always have the wheels turning on, what different gaps we can fill to make diagnostics easier and faster and more accurate.
Awesome. Yeah. So, and I'm looking forward to diving into more of the detail there with some of those new gizmos that you've created at Retrotec.
Sure.
And I think that most people who are listening to the podcast or watching the podcast, we're doing a video version of this as well, know Retrotec well, and the work that you do. And of course, airtightness is such a key aspect of passive house specifically, but high performance building more generally. And measuring that airtightness and the build quality of these buildings is vital for the durability of the buildings, but also to become certified. So blower door tests, I know, are one piece of your work at Retrotec, but there's much more. So could you kind of do the provide a sense for the breadth of the devices that you all are providing to the marketplace and why they're important?
Yeah. So as you mentioned, airtightness testing is our heart and soul of who we are. Retrotec started in 1980 and has been making blower door assemblies, right off the bat ever since. And we made the first residential duct tester, I think back in '89. We did it for the Canadian government. But there's a lot that we do for commercial as well. As you get into commercial, even some passive house projects for commercial, when you get more fans and more gauges and software, it gets pretty complex. And so we're really trying to streamline that process as well to make it less intimidating and easier for people to understand that are kind of starting out into this. But, blower doors are also used in the fire prevention industry. That our founder, Colin Genge, I think it's back in the mid 80s, he developed a process for testing rooms to see how well they will take clean agent fire suppression foam. So those rooms have to be able to retain that foam at a certain level for a certain amount of time. And we figured out how to use blower doors to do that. So that's a whole other industry that we also serve for air tightness. But yeah, airflow measurement is also a lot of what we get into as well. You can actually use your blower doors and duct testers to do that by pressure matching certain supplies and returns and get an accurate measurement that way. We have the flow box tool that we also make, and ASIN is a partner of ours too out of the Netherlands, and they make it's a powered or active flow hood that you can use to accurately balance HVAC systems in a home. So that's a product that we carry too that just kind of falls right in line with what we do.
Right. And I can see over your left shoulder an ASIN there. Yeah. So what do we for listeners, there's this wonderful backdrop of a bunch of great equipment in red and yellow, the signature Retrotec colors. Could you maybe kind of show us around a little bit?
Yeah, sure. We'll start over here on this side. We've got a couple of duct testers here, and we manufacture two duct testers. One is primarily for residential, and one is for commercial duct leakage. But they can be used for other things too. The residential fan and manometer is really good for, a few pascals up to 1 inch of water. And then the commercial one is good for 1 inch of water up to 20 inches. So we can also use these to test air tightness in window and door assemblies and mock-up testing as well. So, if we want to do rain penetration tests on a window or door assembly or a curtain wall, we can use this high output commercial fan for that too. So we have a lot of customers that do passive house testing that also tests specific assemblies using this equipment too. But yeah, we just, it's good to have a couple of options. It's because depending on what kind of test you're doing, you'll need different pressure requirements, and it takes 2 different fans to do that.
Right.
But yeah, and of course we have our blower door here. This is our basic model 5000 that you would use. Really, you could test any single family home with this. For passive house, what a lot of folks are doing, or they're using our model 300 duct tester, just because for tighter houses, you just don't need that much fan flow, and it's just less equipment to carry around. So you can actually use that fan as a blower door. And we actually have a package specifically for passive house where that's uses the same manometer as the blower door does too. But one thing new that we worked on, came out with a few years ago was, especially when you're doing tests for passive house, you have to do what's called a multi-point blower door test, where you're starting at a higher pressure and then working your way down to 10 pascals sometimes. And a big challenge that we run into is wind. Wind can blow on that tube on the outside and cause a 10 pascal pressure differential and really screw up your readings. So we came out with what's called the smart cloth. I know for folks at home that are listening, if you're familiar with blower door testing, the traditional way is you take your reference tube outside and toss it out into the fan flow. Well, what we've done here is actually stitch the tubing into the cloth. So it references at 2 points on the outside, and it has a small T just to help deflect some of that wind off of it. And then collecting those 2 points and then teeing it together kind of helps stabilize some of those windy conditions, so you can get some cleaner readings at some of those lower pressures. It doesn't omit the wind altogether. There's really not a way we can do that, unfortunately, but at least we can make it a little bit better. And then that way the manometer can just plug straight up to the cloth. You don't have to worry about crawling through the hole and tossing it outside. So that's an improvement that we came out with a few years ago, and it's standard with our systems now.
Yeah, very cool. Very cool.
Yeah.
So one of the things, well, actually, before we do this, I was going to ask about, what you're seeing in the marketplace, and because there's this kind of boom of passive house going on. But before we do that, let's dive a little bit deeper into the products that you mentioned that you have been involved in developing, if you wouldn't mind.
Sure.
It'd be great to hear more about those.
Yeah, so probably the biggest thing that we just released this month is our new blower door duct testing manometer, and that's the DM32X. If you're familiar with the DM32, it turned 10 years old this year. It's been out for a while, and it was a game changer when it came out. That was the first gauge that had a touchscreen interface that had the wireless connectivity, so you could run blower door and duct tests on just from an app on your phone and generate a report. But it's if you keep stagnant, then you don't innovate, right? So there's always with new technology that comes out, there's new components, new sensors that have come out that we could really leverage to make this a better process. And so that's what we've done with the DM32X, as well as some other improvements too, such as the high resolution OLED display. It's Gorilla Glass. It's more durable. We've done some pretty rigorous drop tests on it. We know some of this equipment gets abused in the field pretty heavily, so we just want to make sure this is going to hold up really well. So that's an exciting product that we've been working on for the past 3 years that we've just now released and taken orders for. And so working with our engineering team to make sure that it's going to have a nice workflow to it for our customers has been a fun project to work on. And I mentioned the automated reporting that came out with the DM32. With this new gauge, there's no need to pair a phone or a tablet with it. That rCloud app is just built into the gauge, so you can generate reports without having to need internet access or pair a phone or anything like that. So it's just all built in.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's exciting. Cool. So onto the market. I mean, I imagine this is a time of lots of growth and demand for testing equipment. And so is that the case? I mean, we have this, and we're on the cusp of a massive increase in passive house deployment in Massachusetts. And of course, we've heard a lot about what's going on in New York and Vancouver, now also Toronto. So what are you seeing on the ground in terms of demand for blower door testing and duct testing, and what I guess, are there pinch points there that or ways that we can make that transition as smooth as possible, or just it would just be great to hear your perspectives from where you're sitting on what's going on.
Yeah. So you mentioned, for Passive House specifically, Massachusetts has definitely been a hot spot. And there's been some others that have been popping up too. But definitely, up in New England, we see a lot of that going on. And over the past few years, we have seen a much larger demand for blower doors and other air tightness testing tools. With all of this going on, it's great to see, but we're still fighting that same battle with just traditional code built homes. Retrotec's been around for over 40 years, and it's still such a new concept to so many builders across the country. So that's a challenge that we continue to fight. But with the increase of social media, we have more and more influencers that are coming into the space now, that are showing folks why this is important. It's not just energy efficiency, it's indoor air quality, it's comfort, it's durability of the house. There's a lot that we're achieving here just by making an airtight home. So, outside of just the really nerdy building science people that have been around for a long time, it's kind of starting to branch out more into some other trades. We're seeing a lot of activity among HVAC contractors. They're able to take blower doors and investigate building envelopes to see, like, okay, is this an HVAC system problem or is this a building problem? I don't want to put in a brand new system and get blamed for something that's not my fault. So we see a lot of HVAC contractors getting into that, or just to validate that what they installed is, what was designed to do. We're seeing, more insulators do this too, especially with the availability to do those automatic reports. They can come in, all right, we're going to run a test. Here's where you are. This is the air sealing job that we're going to do. They'll complete the work, test again, compare the reports, and actually have the numbers to prove that what they did was effective. So we're seeing a lot of growth there too. But I would say also in custom home builders, whether if they're doing Passive House or not, a lot of them are. But sometimes the customer will elect to just do a higher performance home and not quite Passive House, maybe somewhere on that spectrum in between code and Passive House, where you still need a blower door to do that. To check behind your subs, see what changed after a sub left. Groups like the Build Show have done a really good job of showing how this works. One of their contributors, Jake Bruton, he created a process where he actually does 3 blower door tests throughout the build. We'll hang up the sheeting, the air barrier material, we'll test it. Okay, and then we'll come in and test after windows and doors and see what the difference is. If it's a big difference, let's figure out why. And then we'll test again at final to make sure that we're keeping that same steady number along the way. And that's a great way to do it. And when you actually can just pull up your phone and look at Instagram and just see that in just a few minutes and how that works, I think it's really kind of opened a lot of people's eyes that are getting into the home building industry and seeing like why this matters and how to get there.
That makes so much sense. I mean, it's this really powerful diagnostic tool about the kind of integrity of the build over time, and how it's impacted with these different moments of intervention that different trades kind of bring to the table, right?
Yeah.
So that's interesting that, and makes total sense that you would also see trades involved in wanting to know and kind of prove out the way that they've made the building better, and validate that, and also cover for some liability and things that they are out of their control. That's
exactly watching the HVAC contractors get into it has been a lot of fun and very interesting, just for that liability reason. Like, okay, this problem is happening, but it's out of my wheelhouse, and here's who you would need to call. Or some of them are saying, okay, well, let's bring this into our wheelhouse. Let's make this, we can do spray foam. That's not hard. So some of them are learning and starting to offer it, and that's just a new product that they can offer up now and make more money on. So I would definitely say that the home building industry has evolved quite a bit here over this past decade. There's so much more information out there now, and so many more examples out there now that wasn't there before. So that's been refreshing. But I live in North Carolina, and here our code, we don't have an air tightness requirement.
Right.
We still don't.
Yeah.
And so that's been really frustrating. And there was a group for a while that I was on the board for called the North Carolina Building Performance Association. And we tried as hard as we could to educate legislators, go to, lobby and things like that. And it's just, it's tough. It's just going to have to evolve at its own pace. And
yeah,
it's moving forward. Other states around us are getting there. So, it's just not moving as fast as we want it to, but, I see it happening, in the near future.
Yeah. I know I can empathize with that feeling of like, advocating for improvement, improvement X in the building code and not necessarily seeing that happen. And then progress can happen quickly when the right kind of personalities, it seems like are really critical, like the right people are in the right spot to help make those decisions kind of move through and stick. So is Retrotec involved in governmental affairs? I mean, do you have, are you all playing a role in advocating for stronger building code, or are you mainly focused on developing new products? I mean, I'm sure that it's mainly developing new products, but I get, is there a governmental affairs piece to the work that Retrotec is doing?
Yeah, I would say we do a little bit of both. If there's a way that we can provide education, to a state that's new to this, we certainly have code officials that reach out that are getting there to say, hey, this is a new frontier to us. You guys make the tools. Like, what do we do here? And so, I'll definitely hold a class for them and come in and show them what it is. And it's not as scary as it looks, to at least, remove that haze that's there. To show what it is that we're actually doing, why we're doing it, and then how we get that number that we want to get, and how to test for it. So I wouldn't say that we are involved in governmental affairs. I mean, that's not what we do. We're a tool manufacturer. But anytime that there's a need for education, most definitely we'll come in at our 2 cents. We're on various committees too for different standards, both in the US and over in Europe as well. So to at least provide guidance to show what our tools are capable of, what we can do, what's realistic, what makes sense, what we've seen that's been failing, what's been working. Just since, we do have some boots on the ground. Myself, I'm in the field quite a bit with customers, and we have a couple of other folks that are as well. So and I know our competitors do the same. So we sit on a lot of committees together just to kind of help push things through in a way that makes sense. So it's the building science community is pretty tight knit, but it has been growing rapidly. I would say over this past decade, there's been more and more people gaining interest that have been learning, that have been trying to contribute their 2 cents as well. Yeah.
And what sort of reach do you have globally? What are your markets?
Yeah, we're all over. It's funny. There's a few conferences that we go to. One of them is called AIBC. It travels around to a different European country every year. And they have a committee specifically for wind and blower door testing. I mean, it's that much of a challenge, and they take it very seriously. And, up until, we released that cloth, we kind of felt like it was our responsibility to provide a solution for that. You're using our tools and this is a challenge that you're having. Let's figure this out. Because before, people were doing things like putting a tube in a Coke bottle or a sponge and things that just don't work.
Yeah.
And so it's like, okay, we need to research this a little more. And so the smart cloth, it helps a lot, especially if you put it on the leeward side of the building. It does kind of knock that down some, but that's another topic that we continue to explore, to try to provide some more solutions for. But we're pretty heavily involved in Europe. We have we have a headquarters in the Netherlands as well. We're pretty involved heavily in Australia as well. We just provided some calibration equipment so they can calibrate equipment over there to one of our resellers, so they don't have to ship it all the way back to the States to get that done. But we do a lot in Africa as well. Asia is pretty active. China's not doing as much as you would think, but they're starting to talk about it. But it's interesting. I might be going to Japan next year to help them do a commercial duct test for a new standard that they have. So
nice.
Yeah, so it's not just here. Other countries are also talking about this, but I would say the biggest challenge that we have is when we go to that European conferences. Each one of those countries is kind of like a state, but they're all kind of doing things together. But over here in the States, we have 50 of them, and they're all doing things independently of each other.
Totally independently. I know it's
and it makes
nuts.
it really, really difficult to get everybody on the same page and then keep up with what everybody's doing. And because even in certain states, you have different jurisdictions that are doing things different from the next county over, and it's just impossible to see what everybody's doing. It's always changing. But yeah, so that's just the nature of the beast.
Yeah, no, it's a real challenge of kind of keeping up with code and rules and practice in the US. And it's ironic that we're all part of the same country, and it might be more aligned in Europe between separate countries. This is amazing. This is great, Sam. I really appreciate your time and getting to dive into some more detail around Retrotec. I think that I'm learning a lot, and I know that listeners probably are too. Is there anything else that you'd like to share with us before we close up?
Yeah, I think 2023 will be a big year for diagnostic tools. We have this new gauge that's coming out. You can actually pick it up, and it has videos built into it. So if you're new to blower door testing, it can just walk you through on how to set up the house and how to set up the equipment. We're trying to make this as easy as we can. Still has the color coded ports on it, so you can set everything up by that. But there's some other things in the works too. One complaint that we have always gotten is these fans are super heavy. So we're hoping to kick off a lighter weight, more powerful fan here in the near future. That can maybe run off a battery. DC motor technology has really gotten a lot better, and so we've been playing around with that a lot. So, we have a lot of stuff in the works that we're working on too. There's a lot of technology available now for pressure sensors that we're playing around with to get more accurate readings to try to navigate certain issues there too. But yeah, this new gauge is really cool. There's a lot under the hood that's there that hasn't been there before, such as a lot of the filtering we're able to do with these readings now to really get it dialed in. There's actually a live graph where you can read exactly what's going on with changes in pressure. If you want to record certain things, activity outside, your baseline readings. If you're doing some blower door assisted air sealing, you can actually graph it and see what changes where along that graph. So some different things there that we're playing with.
Fantastic. Well, a lot going on. So watch this space. This is really great, Sam. Appreciate it.
Yeah. And and thanks to you guys for just constantly getting good information out and just helping push this along. Man, if we could just get Passive House as a standard for code, man, that'd be great. We'll get there one day.
I know. Let's do it. Let's do it. Yeah.
One funny thing we've seen is we've seen a couple of homeowners actually come in and buy blower doors that are building houses themselves and then just turn around and sell them when they're finished. Just because they may not be able to find somebody that they trust, but they at least can go through and get the information and test. So, it's reaching homeowners too. It's more and more people are starting to care about this. So it's as long as we keep trucking along, I think we'll get there.
Yeah, that's encouraging. Well, Sam, thank you so much, and thanks to Retrotec.
Sure. Thanks for having me.
And that was Sam Meyers of Retrotec. I had no idea, Zach, that they had been around for coming on 40 years.
Indeed. Yeah. They've been,
it's impressive.
Yeah. I mean, so they predate the Passive House movement in North America. Well, I mean, I guess it depends on how you count, right? But there were some proto Passive Houses that were around in Canada before then.
The interesting thing about that for me is that, and Sam, his background is building science. So the building science has been around for a while. People have known about the benefits of building airtight envelopes and also things like duct testing and pressurization, those sorts of things, and just quality control of buildings. The other thing that strikes me from that interview is how much the whole blower door testing, that quality control, is still very it's almost like it's in its infancy. In some ways, it's been around for 4 decades, but so many people haven't heard of it beyond the circles that might be listening to this podcast. A lot of builders still have very little knowledge about what airtightness really is and pressure testing. So there's a great opportunity there for the whole industry to get involved and do more of this stuff. Get yourself blood or for a start, and add that to your toolkit, because I think it's just going to grow in demand.
No kidding. I mean, just in terms of the potential for growth for Retrotec is pretty massive, I think. And I thought it was really interesting to hear about how the blower doors are becoming a tool for all sorts of subcontractors for, to assist in their work, to prove out what they've contributed to a project, to limit their liability as well. So there are so many applications of the blower door that I think that as in the Pass Fail community, of course, everyone's aware of its importance in that final test. But I think also the community has been aware for some time of how powerful it can be as a diagnostic tool and to help troubleshoot during the process of construction. I think that what was maybe new to me was how prevalent it's becoming for subcontractors.
Yeah. Or even the passionate homeowner,
right?
Who goes ahead and buys your own door, and then once the job's done, it is. I know from talking to building scientists and people involved with blower doors that it's so handy to have a door on site during the construction, not just a van turn up and have the red door test and everyone get nervous right at the end of the project. It's much more beneficial to do things incrementally and test things, even sealing off one window installation and checking the quality of that. You do your first window and check that system that you've chosen is going to work adequately, and before you roll that out to the rest of the building. There's so many applications, like you said, testing ducting as well for air tightness. Really exciting innovations coming down the line there that Sam alluded to, and I can attest, having lugged around the fan myself in a relatively small car at the time. It's not a small piece of kit, but the potential of having a smaller, lighter fan and possibly even a battery-powered one, that's super exciting. The other thing, of course, is that the better quality your build, then the less fan power you need. So it makes sense that as buildings get better, fans can become smaller because you don't need as much power to fill the whole thing up and keep that pressure differential across that you would if it was a really leaky envelope.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's a good point. Right. And I think that, given the kind of product development that's going there, if for listeners who may have become familiar with Retrotec's line a few years ago, it's time to refresh.
Definitely.
We'll share a link.
Especially some of the software and the cloud-based stuff, and being able to see stuff live. That's hugely powerful for diagnostics, rather than just running a test and say, well, here's your result, you guys go and figure stuff out and I'll come back and give it another test. But if you can be running it at the fan and then going around and checking things, checking seals as it's doing its thing, then you can really be looking at what's making the most difference. And I think that's going to change the industry as well, and change the knowledge for contractors and builders so that they start to get real live feedback about what are the things that make the most difference in the integrity of the building envelope.
Yeah, makes so much sense.
We're going to put some links up. I know Retrotec has a heap of great videos and stuff on their website, so definitely go and check that out. I was also interested, right at the top, Sam mentioned some of the other products they have, like probes and things for looking inside walls without having to pull them apart. So they do a lot more than just just the big red door.
Yep.
All right. Thank you to Retrotec for being a supporter of what we do at the accelerator, and thanks to Sam for his time and for that great interview, Zach. Awesome.
Yeah, it was fun. Thanks, Matthew.